Officer Martinez had been patrolling the Riverside district for 3 years, but nothing could have prepared him for what happened on that foggy Tuesday morning. His German Shepherd partner, Rex, suddenly stopped during their routine walk along the embankment and began whining in a way Martinez had never heard before. The dog's ears were pinned back and his body language screamed urgency. The morning mist hung heavy over the concrete bridge that crossed the murky river. This wasn't the nicest part of town. Graffiti covered most surfaces and broken glass littered the walkways. Martinez often found homeless individuals seeking shelter under various bridges in the area, but something felt different this time. Rex was trained to detect drugs and explosives, but his behavior suggested something else entirely. Following Rex's lead, Martinez climbed down the steep embankment toward the bridge's shadowy underside. The smell hit him first, a mixture of dampness, unwashed clothing, and something that made his stomach turn. Rex was pawing frantically at a pile of cardboard boxes and old blankets that had been arranged against the concrete support beam. As Martinez approached, he heard it, a soft whimpering that definitely wasn't coming from his dog. His heart began racing as he realized what Rex had discovered. Carefully moving aside the makeshift shelter, Martinez found 2 small children huddled together in the filthy space. The girl appeared to be around 8 years old, while the boy looked no more than 5. Both were painfully thin, their clothes hanging loosely on their tiny frames. The children's eyes were wide with terror as they stared up at the uniformed officer. The girl instinctively pulled her little brother closer, creating a protective barrier between him and the outside world. Their faces were streaked with dirt, and Martinez could see that they hadn't had a proper meal or bath in weeks. The boy was clutching a torn stuffed animal, while the girl held what appeared to be an empty food container. Martinez immediately radioed for backup and medical assistance, his voice slightly shaking as he described the situation. The children remained completely silent, watching his every move with the wariness of animals who had learned that adults couldn't be trusted. Rex, sensing the delicate nature of the situation, lay down nearby and remained perfectly still, his presence somehow comforting rather than threatening. While waiting for help to arrive, Martinez tried to communicate with the children using gentle words and slow movements. He offered them water from his bottle, which they accepted eagerly, drinking as if they hadn't had clean water in days. The girl never took her eyes off Martinez, clearly acting as the protector despite her young age and fragile condition. The sound of approaching sirens filled the air as paramedics and social services arrived on the scene. Martinez watched as the medical team carefully examined the children, their professional expressions growing more concerned with each passing minute. The children were severely malnourished and dehydrated, with various cuts and bruises covering their exposed skin. Their clothes were inadequate for the cold weather, and both were showing signs of prolonged exposure to the elements. As the paramedics prepared to transport the children to the hospital, the girl finally spoke her first words. Her voice was barely a whisper, but Martinez caught every syllable as she asked if Rex could come with them. The simple request broke his heart, revealing just how desperate these children were for any source of comfort and protection. In that moment, Martinez realized this case would change his life forever. At the hospital, Dr. Sarah Chen couldn't hide her shock when she saw the condition of the 2 children. In her 15 years of pediatric medicine, she had treated many cases of neglect, but Emma and Michael's situation was among the worst she had encountered. The 8-year-old girl weighed only 42 pounds, while her 5-year-old brother weighed just 31 pounds, both far below healthy ranges for their ages. The medical examination revealed a heartbreaking story written on their small bodies. Both children showed signs of chronic malnutrition, with brittle hair, pale skin, and developmental delays that spoke of months without proper care. Emma had several partially healed injuries that suggested she had been trying to find food and shelter in dangerous places. Michael had a persistent cough that indicated possible pneumonia, likely from sleeping in cold, damp conditions. Social worker Janet Rodriguez arrived at the hospital within an hour of the children's admission. She had been handling child welfare cases for over a decade, but something about Emma's fierce protective instincts toward her brother touched her deeply. Despite being weak and frightened, Emma refused to let anyone separate her from Michael, even for brief medical procedures. The staff had to be creative, allowing the siblings to remain within sight of each other at all times. During the initial interview, Emma remained largely silent, answering questions with simple nods or headshakes. However, when Rodriguez asked about their parents, the girl's entire demeanor changed. Her jaw tightened, and she wrapped her arms around Michael with a determination that seemed far too mature for someone her age. It became clear that Emma had been caring for her brother alone for quite some time, taking on responsibilities that no child should ever have to bear. The investigation into their background began immediately. Police discovered that the children had been living with their mother in a rundown apartment complex on the other side of town. Neighbors reported hearing loud arguments and seeing various men coming and going at all hours. Several residents mentioned that they hadn't seen the children or their mother in over 2 weeks, but assumed the family had simply moved away. When officers arrived at the apartment, they found the door unlocked and the unit completely empty except for some scattered trash and old furniture. The electricity had been shut off for non-payment, and there was no sign of where the mother might have gone. A neighbor eventually admitted that she had seen a woman matching the mother's description, leaving with a man in a pickup truck, but there were no children with them. The neighbor had assumed the children were staying with relatives. Back at the hospital, Emma began showing signs of severe anxiety whenever anyone mentioned finding their mother or other family members. She would hold Michael tighter and sometimes whispered things in his ear that seemed to calm him down. The medical staff noticed that Emma barely slept, constantly watching the door as if expecting someone dangerous to walk through it at any moment. Officer Martinez visited the children every day, bringing Rex along when hospital policy allowed. Something magical happened during these visits. Emma's defensive walls would lower slightly, and she would actually smile when the German Shepherd performed simple tricks or rested his head near her bed. Rex seemed to understand his role in the healing process, remaining gentle and patient with both children. During one of these visits, Emma finally began to open up to Martinez. She explained that their mother had been sick for a long time, though her description suggested drug addiction rather than physical illness. Emma revealed that she had been taking care of Michael by herself for weeks, scavenging for food in dumpsters and finding places to sleep wherever they felt safe. The bridge had been their home for over a week before Rex discovered them. The most heartbreaking revelation came when Emma described how she had tried to keep Michael from crying because it might attract bad people who would hurt them. This 8-year-old girl had developed survival instincts that spoke of experiences no child should ever have to endure. Yet she had never once complained about her own suffering or asked for anything except safety for her little brother. The search for suitable foster care became a complex challenge that kept Janet Rodriguez awake at night. Emma and Michael needed specialized care due to their trauma and malnutrition, but more importantly, they needed to stay together. Emma had made it crystal clear that she would not be separated from her brother under any circumstances, and the psychological evaluation supported keeping the siblings united for their emotional well-being. After 3 weeks in the hospital, the children had gained some weight and their immediate health concerns were addressed. However, their emotional healing would take much longer. Emma still barely spoke to adults, communicating mainly through protective gestures toward Michael and careful observation of everyone around her. Michael, meanwhile, had developed selective mutism and would only speak to his sister in whispered conversations that no one else could understand. The breakthrough came from an unexpected source. Officer Martinez had been visiting regularly, and Rex had become a source of comfort for both children. During one visit, Emma asked Martinez if Rex had a family. When Martinez explained that Rex lived with him and was his partner, Emma's eyes lit up with the first genuine interest she had shown in anything beyond her brother's welfare. This conversation led Martinez to make a decision that would surprise everyone, including himself. That evening, he called Janet Rodriguez with a proposal that initially seemed impossible. Martinez wanted to apply as a foster parent for Emma and Michael. He was a single man with no experience raising children, but he had witnessed firsthand the trust that the children had developed. With him and Rex, the idea faced immediate resistance from various officials who questioned whether a bachelor police officer could provide appropriate care for 2 traumatized children. Martinez spent weeks attending training sessions, undergoing background checks and modifying his home to meet foster care requirements. His determination impressed everyone involved in the case, but the final decision would rest with the children themselves. When Rodriguez presented the possibility to Emma, The girl's reaction was unlike anything the social worker had seen. For the first time since being found under the bridge, Emma asked questions about the future. She wanted to know if she and Michael could stay together, if Rex would be there, and if they would be safe. Her questions revealed a mature understanding of her situation that was both impressive and heartbreaking. The transition began slowly, with Martinez visiting the children daily and eventually taking them on supervised outings. The first trip to his house was carefully planned, with Rodriguez present to observe how the children responded to their potential new environment. Emma inspected every room like a tiny security expert, checking windows and door locks while Michael stayed close to Rex, gradually becoming more comfortable with the large dog. What happened next surprised everyone involved in the case. Emma began displaying leadership qualities that had been hidden during their time on the streets. She helped Martinez child-proof his home, pointing out potential dangers with the expertise of someone who had learned to survive in hostile environments. She also took charge of helping Michael adjust, creating routines and explaining changes in a way that made her brother feel secure. The foster placement became official after 2 months of careful evaluation and gradual transition. On the day Martinez officially became their foster father, Emma did something that brought tears to the eyes of everyone present. She walked up to Martinez, looked him directly in the eyes, and said, "Thank you for not splitting us up." It was the longest sentence she had spoken since being rescued, and it carried the weight of all her fears and hopes. Rex seemed to understand his new role in the family immediately. The dog would position himself between the children and any strangers, providing a sense of security that allowed Emma to lower her guard slightly. Michael began speaking again, first to Rex in quiet whispers, then gradually to Martinez, and finally to other people when Emma gave him encouraging nods. Thus house that had once been a quiet home for a bachelor police officer and his canine partner was transformed into something none of them had expected. Emma's protective instincts evolved into helpful behaviors, like making sure everyone had enough to eat and that doors were locked at night. Michael's gentle nature emerged as he gained confidence, and he showed remarkable empathy for both Rex and Martinez, often bringing them small gifts like flowers from the yard or pictures he had drawn. 6 months after the rescue, Emma made a decision that would shock everyone who knew her story. She approached Martinez one evening with a determination that reminded him of the fierce protector he had first encountered under the bridge. Emma announced that she wanted to help other children who might be in situations like hers and Michael's had been. This 8-year-old girl who had survived abandonment and homelessness wanted to use her experience to make a difference. The idea seemed impossible at first. Emma was still attending therapy sessions to work through her trauma, and she was just beginning to trust the adults in her new life. However, her therapist, Dr. Williams, believed that Emma's desire to help others could actually be therapeutic for her own healing process. The key would be finding age-appropriate ways for her to contribute, while ensuring her own recovery remained the priority. Martinez worked with the police department to develop a unique program that would allow Emma to help in a safe, controlled environment. The plan involved Emma creating a presentation for other officers about signs that children might be living on the streets. Her first-hand knowledge could help train law enforcement to recognize situations that might otherwise be overlooked or misunderstood. The first presentation took place in the police department's small training room with just 5 officers present. Emma stood in front of the group with Michael beside her and Rex lying at their feet. Her voice was quiet but steady as she explained how children like them tried to stay invisible to avoid being caught. She described the places they looked for food, how they found shelter, and the signs that might indicate a child was caring for themselves or younger siblings. What made Emma's presentation extraordinary wasn't just the information she shared, but the way she delivered it. Despite her young age, she spoke with an authority that came from lived experience. She explained that hungry children often ate very quickly when given food, that they might hoard items even when told they could have more, and that they frequently looked for escape routes even in safe situations. The officers listening to Emma were moved by her courage and insight. Several admitted that they had encountered children in similar situations, but hadn't recognized the signs of abandonment or neglect. Emma's presentation helped them understand that what might look like defiant or difficult behavior could actually be survival instincts developed by children trying to protect themselves. Word of Emma's presentation spread through the police department and eventually reached other agencies in the city. Social services requested that Emma adapt her presentation for their workers, and local hospitals asked if she could help train their staff to better recognize signs of child abandonment. Each presentation was carefully planned to protect Emma's emotional well-being while allowing her to share her valuable knowledge. Michael began playing a role in these presentations as well, though in a different way than his sister. His presence served as a powerful reminder of who these efforts were meant to help. When he would quietly hold Emma's hand during difficult parts of her speech, or when he would pet Rex for comfort, audiences were reminded that these were real children who had endured real suffering. The most significant moment came when Emma was invited to speak at a city council meeting about funding for programs to help homeless children. Standing at the podium with Martinez and Rex nearby for support, Emma addressed a room full of adults with the same determination she had shown when protecting her brother under the bridge. She explained that children living on the streets weren't choosing to be there, and that they needed help, not punishment. Her speech was brief but powerful. Emma told the council members that she and Michael had been lucky because Officer Martinez and Rex found them. But there were other children still hiding in places where nobody was looking. She asked the adults to remember that scared children might not know how to ask for help, and that sometimes they needed people to look for them instead of waiting for them to come forward. The council voted unanimously to increase funding for outreach programs targeting homeless children. Several members commented that Emma's presentation had helped them understand the issue in a way that statistics and reports never could. Her ability to speak for children who had no voice impressed everyone who heard her, and requests for her presentations continued to arrive from organizations throughout the region. Emma's transformation from a frightened, defensive child to a confident advocate amazed everyone who witnessed it. However, those closest to her understood that her strength had always been there. The same protective instincts that had kept Michael alive during their worst moments were now being channeled into helping other vulnerable children. Her trauma had not been erased, but it had been transformed into a source of purpose and power. 2 years after Rex discovered them under the bridge, Emma and Michael had become integral parts of a family that none of them had planned, but all of them cherished. The adoption papers were finalized on a sunny Thursday morning, making Martinez officially their father and giving the children the permanent security they had never known before. Emma insisted that Rex should be included in the ceremony somehow, so the judge allowed the German Shepherd to sit beside them as they signed the documents that would change their lives forever. The most remarkable development was the impact Emma's advocacy work had created throughout the city. Her presentations had led to the establishment of the Rex program, a specialized unit that paired police dogs with their handlers to specifically search for homeless children in areas where they might be hiding. The program had already resulted in the rescue of 17 children who might otherwise have remained invisible to traditional outreach efforts. Emma had grown from a frightened 8-year-old into a confident 10-year-old who balanced her advocacy work with the normal activities of childhood. She played soccer, struggled with math homework, and had developed a love for reading that often kept her up past bedtime. Michael, now 7, had blossomed into a chatty, curious boy who loved drawing pictures of their family adventures and teaching Rex new tricks. The success of Emma's work caught the attention of national media, but Martinez carefully protected his children from excessive publicity. He allowed selective interviews and presentations, always ensuring that Emma and Michael's privacy and emotional well-being remained the top priority. Emma appreciated this protection but also understood the importance of sharing their story to help other children. One of the most meaningful moments came when Emma received a letter from a girl named Sophia, who had been found living in an abandoned building after police officers remembered Emma's presentation about places children might hide. Sophia wrote that learning about Emma's story had given her hope during her own recovery. The letter reinforced Emma's belief that sharing difficult experiences could create positive change for other people facing similar challenges. The bond between Rex and the children had evolved into something extraordinary. The dog seemed to understand his role as both protector and family member, adjusting his behavior perfectly to what each situation required. During Emma's presentations, Rex remained calm and professional. At home, he played enthusiastically with both children, allowing them to dress him up and teaching them about responsibility through his care requirements. Martinez often reflected on how his life had changed since that foggy morning when Rex led him under the bridge. He had gone from being a bachelor police officer to a father of two, and the experience had taught him lessons about resilience, love, and the power of providing stability to children who had known only chaos. His relationship with Rex had also deepened, as he witnessed daily how the dog's intuitive understanding of human emotion contributed to his children's healing process. The children's relationship with their past remained complex but healthy. They attended therapy regularly, and both had developed the ability to talk about their experiences before the rescue without being overwhelmed by them. Emma occasionally had nightmares, but she had learned coping strategies that helped her feel safe again. Michael's selective mutism had completely resolved, though he remained a thoughtful child who chose his words. Carefully, Emma's most recent project involved working with the city to install small emergency boxes in areas where homeless children might seek shelter. Each box contained basic supplies like water, snacks, blankets, and information about where to find help. More importantly, each box included a note written by Emma explaining that seeking help was brave, not shameful, and that there were people who cared about their safety. The girl who had once survived by keeping herself and her brother invisible to the world had found her voice and was using it to make sure other children would never feel as alone as she once had. Her transformation from victim to advocate demonstrated that healing was possible even after severe trauma, and that strength could emerge from the most difficult circumstances. On quiet evenings, the family would often sit together in their living room, with Rex stretched across the floor and both children curled up with books or homework. Martinez would watch his children and feel amazed by their resilience and growth. Emma and Michael had taught him that family could be created from the most unexpected circumstances, and that love could flourish even after the deepest wounds. The story that began with a police officer and his dog discovering two malnourished children under a bridge had evolved into something much larger. It had become a testament to the power of compassion, the importance of never giving up on vulnerable children, and the extraordinary things that could happen when people chose to act with courage and kindness. Emma's journey from silent survivor to confident advocate had left everyone speechless, proving that even the smallest voices could create the biggest changes when given the chance to be heard.